Mads Pedersen with a second stage win in 3 days, and he is back in the pink jersey once again. What a finale that was.
I mean, a cracking finale. There was a drama, there was a dog, there was a slowing down, there was the world's longest lead-out from Ciccone and Vacek, a strong sprint by Mads Pedersen, and a very strong Corbin Strong as well.
Yeah.
Talk us through this then, Robbie.
Well, coming into the finish, it was what we expected. Lidl Trek to be leading things out, and the battle to be in his wheel, to at least have a crack at the stage win, that was intense. Much you lose, he was belting Corbin Strong from pillar to post. Strong ended up in the wheel of Mads Pedersen, and he came really close. He got up alongside, never quite hit the front, but he really challenged him all the way to the line. Allnard also did a very good sprint. He was third on day one. He's third again today. But that fight to be in the wheel of Mads Pedersen, that was like UFC was already on. UFC 316 here at the Giro D'Italia. But in the background, also, look on the right-hand side at Brandon Rivera, just flying out of the slipstream and challenging, ended up fourth. But this head-to-head between Pedersen on the left of screen, Corbin Strong on the right. Strong, he knew he wasn't getting this. He went for the early throw, hoping his bike was going to do the go-go gadget front wheel. Wasn't quite long enough for Pedersen. The guy we said would win, did win, but nonetheless, it wasn't boring.
No, it certainly wasn't, and it's one of those as well, Matt, where when you see the head-on angle, it looks incredibly close. I thought it was a photo finish. It looked a little bit more clear from the overhead, but as Robbie said, everyone fighting to get on Mads Pedersen's wheel, and that's what happens very early in these Grand Tours. You know who is in form, and then everyone tries to slot him behind and steal their thunder.
Well, if you look at, apart from Mads Pedersen, Corbin Strong, we know, can finish well, but it was a mix of punchers, a couple of climbers, and some chancers in the mix. It was a really interesting bag of riders.
Lots of Italians.
But also, like, biding your time and waiting, that's what made it more impressive, because in the end, Pedersen actually had to go quite long. That just shows his strength into a headwind. But that dirty air, when Rivera came round, he had so much pace because of the vortex that he was riding in. And so it was a very late, chaotic sprint with some interesting names in there. But Pedersen, has a proper battle, though, wasn't it? But in the end, he had it by half a length. You can see him just glancing. And then, well, no, wheeling it in the end, but no, a super victory. But I tell you, that lead-out from Vacek, he spent some time in the wind, that lad. It's just as if it needs underlining how strong he is, but that was key to keep Pedersen in a good place.
Really impressive run there from Corbin Strong. What are you giggling at, Robbie?
I'm impressed by the mentality of a sprinter. He didn't even mention almost boxing match with Maciusi. It's just one of the things that happens in the preparation for a bunch sprint. You just go, I just had to fight hard for position. You just don't think any more of it until you maybe see the pictures and go, wow, he was belting me.
Leaning half a metre off his bike. Let's see it actually from the overhead angle, Adam, if you scooch over here.
Right. I think this was about 700 metres ago. We'll highlight a few people first. First of all, we've got Vacek. This man, if you watch his acceleration, he did about last 900 metres on the front, I'm going to say.
The space he created is amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's amazing that he's just gone in the middle of the road, you know. It leaves all this door open for riders to start coming round. Everyone was fighting for Pedersen's wheel, but at that time they did create a lot of space for a lot of chaos. As we get into this, Corbin, as I said, Vacek was super strong on the front. He almost had like 2 or 3 accelerations, but it just surprises me that nobody is trying to make the effort to come up there. Sorry, Robbie's pointing and touching.
Well, the two riders, Corbin Strong and Maciusi, right behind Mads Pedersen, at one point they're just both in the wind. They're battling so hard. It's something we spoke about in commentary, that the riders battling for the wheel are sort of using each other's best energies in the battle for position. Then the sprint still has to start.
Yeah, exactly that. And with these two battling for position, it wastes a lot of energy.
There's a lot of nudging there. There could be some VAR
possible
going on.
Yellow card. Possible.
Yeah. Do you think that? Sorry, if we pause a little second. We have the introduction of yellow cards now. Is this a kind of incident that would merit one?
No, I'd hate to see one given for that.
I would hate to see one, but we've seen for less.
There was no head used there.
I think it was all above board.
But the wind's coming from this way. That's why he's fighting to get out of the wind a little bit and trying to move Corbin Strong over to the right-hand side, isn't he? So the wind is coming here. That's why all this space is created, and there's movement up the inside as well. But
as it kicks off into the finish, that's 300 to go. So Pedersen at the minute, this is the point where it starts to get, I'm going to say, a little bit uncomfortable. He's sat on the right-hand side of the wheel of Vacek, still waiting. But just look at the acceleration from Vacek. Last little 100 metres to go. Corbin Strong again out the saddle, moving Maciusi. And at this point here, this is the most impressive bit for Pedersen for me. He's how he's able just to shoot off the wheel and just hold it all the way to the finish, because he doesn't lay off, he doesn't give himself space. If you look at the chaos behind, what's interesting, the man that was very, very quick quick to the line. Riviera down here, he started back down here. He's finally found some space, but as these riders start to come up, he's able to get in the slipstream and, as you said, use that dirty air in front of him to go. But Pedersen, once he goes, Corbin Strong, immediately he steps out, so he's already in the wind. If he waited a tiny bit behind, got that slipstream, he might have been able to run at the wheel and use it. But if you look at Riviera coming down on the left-hand side, you can see the gain that they've got from the slipstream.
He's finishing the quickest in the last 70 metres. That's Riviera's going the quickest.
But with that as well, Pedersen, if we just rewind it back, Pedersen didn't even, he was so head down that he crosses the line, still with his head down there, still sprinting.
Yeah, it's
so
almost like not even done a throw, as you said before, Robbie.
So he got across the line.
Well, the same token as Rivera, Allnar, who finished third on the other side, took him a long time to find some space, weaving his way back through. By the time he sort of really started to get on the pedals and produce his biggest power, the line was already there. He'd be sort of ruining the fact that he didn't get himself the perfect run. But it is just so hard when you've got a dominant force like Mads Pedersen and everybody battling to be in that wheel. It complicates it so much.
I love seeing that attention to detail whenever you guys are going through the sprint again, because it's all just a blur to me and it's just thrilling. And I love seeing all the little manoeuvres that you're probably acutely aware of in the middle of a sprint.
I think the interesting thing with that is that was a very, very simple sprint. That's one lead-out happening with a lot of riders fighting for one wheel. When you get 6 or 7 teams riding up with lead-outs, that's when it becomes chaotic, because there's one clear favourite there. You take that into a proper bunch sprint like we've got after the rest day, when you've got 4 or 5 big sprinters in. That's when it starts to get messy.
That's when you need tunnel vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get the blinkers on.
Well, this is the man with the tunnel vision today. All attention was focused on getting that Maglia Rosa back on his shoulders. Absolute delight there from the team car, as all the hard work of the day paid off. Lidl Trek been incredibly impressive in the early stages of this race so far.